This is Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor, and today I'm here with Mr. Gaston Huckabay, who is the writer and showrunner of the animated, over 2 hours long Star Trek fan film, The Paradise Makers. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch it. I realize that it is 2 hours and 12 minutes long, but it's pretty darn impressive. And this is the man behind it. So Gaston, welcome to Fan Film Factor. Good to have you here.
Welcome.
And I want to start with a little bit about you. All I know about you, aside from the fact that you have musical instrumentation and keyboards and stuff behind you, as well as the vocal lyra, is that you live in Texas. So can we find out a little bit more about who Gaston is?
Well, I'm from Dallas, born and raised here. I've been in video production for about 30 years, doing TV commercials, industrials. For years, I ran a community access studio. Got some nice experience dealing with people with that. And of course, I'm a lifelong Star Trek fan.
Oh, of course. Well, you kind of have to be in order to make a 2 hour long fan film.
Yes.
So now it came out in what, 2017, was that correct?
Yes, August of 2017.
August 20th. And when did you start working on
it? We started auditions for voice actors July of 2013.
Oh, okay. So
and we recorded our audio in October of 2013.
All right. So it's 2013. I want to go back to the very beginning. When was it that you decided, I'm going to make a Star Trek fan film, a big, long animated one? And how did you come to that conclusion?
Well, the story started off as an idea for writing a book for my husband for his birthday. I mean, how much more original can you get than writing a book for someone?
Mm-hmm.
I had no illusions to the thought that it would ever get published. I'm well aware that they don't take unsolicited manuscripts, or unless you know somebody, or both. And so I wrote the book. I gave myself 90 days. I spent an entire summer, June, July, and August, writing it, and let it sit around. And that was in 2009. And about 6 months later, a friend of mine, who is a Star Trek prop collector, who also has some legitimate Star Trek books under his belt. Can I show you one?
Sure, go right ahead.
Yeah. His name's Kevin Ryan.
I've heard of him.
3 published novels and several other books that he edited for pocketbooks. So I sent him a vanity copy, and I just wanted to get his opinion on it. And he was rather taken with the idea, and he asked, well, what do you want to do with this? And I said, oh, well, of course I wanted to get published, but that's not going to happen. And he said, well, have you ever thought about turning this into something visually? And I said, no, I hadn't. Making a fan film is not my thing. It's live action, it's just too involved. And he said, well, think about this. Just think about what you can do with it. Well, one night I had bought the box set of Archer, and I decided to pop in the bonus disc. And
now that is Archer, the cartoon series, the animated series from Adult Swim, yeah. As opposed to Archer, the captain of the Enterprise. Well, yeah, there's that, but no, it's the NX-01 captain, Jonathan Archer.
Oh,
the Trekkies are going to go there first, so I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. Okay, so you popped Archer into the machine, and
yeah, I popped in, and I was watching the bonus features, and there was a featurette on how they actually do the animation, and they were showing the software, and I said, well, I've got that, and I've got that, and I've got that. That's all they're using to make this this great TV show. I think I've got an idea for the Paradise Makers. So I contacted Kevin again, and I said, what do you think? And he said, that's a great idea. Can you pull it off? And I said, I wouldn't have mentioned this to you if I couldn't. And so then we sat down and tried to figure out, do we want to do a 2 hour movie? Do we want to do a 1 hour TV piece? or do we want to do it right and do a 2-hour TV piece? And I said, yeah, let's do that. And the direction that we came from was that, what if this is 1966 and NBC contracts Desilu to do a one-off animated Star Trek like Johnny Quest? And that was our whole paradigm that we went under. We wanted it to kind of look like Johnny Quest. We wanted the animation to be somewhat similar, because Hanna-Barbera at the time was doing some nice animation. And so we just went with that direction. And
now, when you say we, is this still just you and Kevin? Or are there other people?
Yes, at this point it was just Kevin and myself talking back and forth. And yeah, we just came to the conclusion it needs to be 2 one-hour episodes, because the manuscript already had the beats of the TV show in it, and he felt that it read just like an episode. So we just went that direction, and he pulled the story apart and said, get rid of this. You don't need that. It's nice, but it has nothing to do with your needed story. And he did everything that a good story editor should do. And I couldn't have done it without him.
Okay, so you finalized the script then, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was what. So at this point, I'm trying to trace the sequence of events that led to this. So at what point was the script now in a place where you thought, okay, we can move forward?
We locked the script in the summer of 2013, and immediately started casting.
Okay.
Looking for voice actors. We did not want to. He lived in New York. I live in Dallas, and we didn't want any moss to grow under this Rolling Stone.
Fair enough. Now, had you already seen other fan films by this point? Because there were a lot by 2013.
I had seen, I believe, Star Trek Phase 2 and one other, and that was all that I was familiar with at the time.
Have you seen more now that it's almost a decade later?
Yeah, there's just so much out there that I can't absorb it all.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I went on to do some research a couple of weeks ago, and there were like 6 of them that just, and it blows me away at the look that they're able to pull this stuff off.
There's more than 6 fan films there.
Oh, no,
I've got hundreds on my
6 that I had no idea about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I got into the Star Trek fan films back in 2014, 2015, and well, technically, I was involved in a very early fan film back in 1999.
Really?
But Voyages of the USS Angeles. I was. It was just our fan club doing a bunch of play acting of Star Trek and videotaping it. The director Rob Kays wanted to get a career in Hollywood doing visual effects, and so he was basically using his Star Trek fan film as a way to justify doing Star Trek effects so he could try to get hired somewhere. It never ended up happening, but he ended up launching another spin-off series called Star Trek Hidden Frontier, which lasted for 7 years and had like 70 episodes. And I had seen also Star Trek Phase 2 back when it was still Star Trek New Voyages, and I was just very impressed that people would build a bridge set and TOS sets in. But it wasn't until 2014, 2015 that I got involved with the Axanar project, the Prelude to Axanar project, and fundraising for Axanar. And it was in 2015 that I became one of the volunteers to add fan film Fridays to the Axanar website. And so every Friday I would look at another fan film and either do a feature on it or interview somebody or news or whatever. And then at the end of 2015, beginning 2016, Axanar got sued, and Alec Peters is the head of Axanar. He suggested that I separate myself from the Axanar website, or at least do a separate fan film website that, therefore I could just, very cleanly just cover fan films without, having this connection to Axanar, which at that point was in a bit of legal trouble. So in beginning of 2016, I started Fan Film Factor, and it's 6 years later, and I've written I don't know, like over
You've got a
1,000
lot of
blocks.
material.
It's ridiculous, and they don't stop making them. But what was funny is that it wasn't until last summer that I found your fan film, which is odd because every so often I regularly look for Star Trek fan films, just to see if there's anything new out there, if there's anything old out there. I've got a whole bunch that I still need to cover that have, come out in the last 10 years or whatever.
Mhm.
And suddenly, on the YouTube recommendation, the Paradise Makers came up, and it was like, this animated Star Trek. And the only animated, cartoon, like Hanna-Barbera type of Star Trek fan film I'd ever seen was the stuff that Kurt Downhauser does, and he does an animated Star Trek. I'd never seen yours before. I started watching it, and then I realized that okay, this is going to be 2 hours of my life. I need to spend some time really watching it. And like, of course, I had to track you down. I couldn't find you anywhere. Finally got you through Facebook. I was so impressed by it, but it was just odd that by that point, I think it'd been 5 years of doing Fan Film Factor. I'd never even seen your fan film, or knew it existed. So anyway, that brings us back to the present here, or more specifically the past, because we're now back to 2013. You've got a lock script, and you and Kevin are now interviewing actors. And so how did you go about looking for voice actors?
Well, I've done quite a bit of industrials and TV commercials, so I kind of have this web of people that I've used, and it's always a phone call. Hey, do you know somebody that can do, blah blah blah, or that's willing to work for free, or all the stuff that actors get to do, and so it fell into place pretty quick, word of mouth, and I was afraid that I was going to get a bunch of fanboys that wanted, and fangirls, because this was kind of a heavy end on female roles, and it turned out not to be that way at all. And not dissing any of that, but it made the work a lot easier, because they were all coming. They wanted something to go on their demo reel that stood out, and if you want to get a casting director to look at your stuff, put something about Star Trek in there, and they immediately rewind that. Let me see that again. The guy that interviewed for Scotty, he passed himself off, Glenn Averone. He passed himself off as a real Scotsman, and it was halfway through rehearsals that I realized, you're not really Scottish, are you? And he had to fess up. So, which
I'll say anything, huh?
Yeah, it was not the voice that he used for Scotty, but he had that Glasgow accent, and he's just exceedingly good with voices.
Do everything possible to refrain from using your phasers, Lieutenant. But find the captain and his party as quickly as you can. No sightseeing, and no carousing with the lasses. I want to check in every 30 minutes. Mr. Kyle, commence beam down on my next signal.
Aye, sir.
Were any of these folks in your cast actually Star Trek fans, or were they mostly just what we call mundanes who had no idea what was what?
No one was really a Star Trek fan. The guy that played Spock kind of fessed up and said, yeah, I do like Star Trek. But the director was the Star Trek fan, Vince Davis. In fact, we had bumped into each other, and I offered him the job at a Texas lottery unveiling of the Star Trek scratch-offs. And he had shown up with his son in full TNG commander uniform. And I said, Vince, this is a really good time to talk to you about this project. And he's like, you want to do an animation? And he knows the kind of work that I do, and that it's not slipshod. But he's like, if you could do this, why aren't other people doing it? And I said, I don't know, but it's the only way I can afford to do this project, and I want to say that I've done it.
Yeah, it's fan filmmaking is sort of an itch you finally discover you have to scratch, and then
Yes,
you can't stop until you're scratching it. So you were not paying any of your actors?
No, the actors worked all gratis.
That was nice.
The agreement that they would get an audio file of their work, and they could do with it whatever they wanted.
Of course, now there's the guidelines that say you can't pay anybody, but back in those days, in 2013, the guidelines didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So you signed up Vince. Now, were you still casting at the time that you signed up Vince to do this, or had you already cast everything? And
No, I had already. Vince was on board, and I also kind of let him be casting director since he knew his way around. Vince was a well-known actor in Dallas and Texas. He has a rather lengthy IMDb page and credentials behind him, also directing stage and other TV commercials. So he came from this as, we're going to do this, straight. This is not, any kind of camp or, we don't want our actors doing a pastiche of William Shatner or Sulu or any of the other characters. We want them just to just be, good actors, bring something to it that tells you who the character is, but without all the like a Saturday Night Live sketch.
Yeah, although your Sulu actually had a very good George Takei impersonation.
Yeah.
Mr. Spock, I have 2 asteroids at those coordinates that don't show up on current charts.
He is most definitely not a Star Trek fan, but his wife said she is, and she said, you are going to do this. And he's like, okay.
So he did
by profession, he's a math teacher.
Oh, he's a math teacher.
Yeah.
And a voiceover. Well, actually, you know what? I have a friend who works in the medical industry, pharmaceutical products, and she's a voiceover actress in her spare time. But okay, so you've got a cast, you've got a director, and so everybody was in different places, I'm guessing, recording their lines, right?
No, we were all at the same place. We built a recording studio and assembled it, and had everybody come in by schedule. Our intent was to have everybody interact with at least somebody else within their scene, and we quickly realized that that's not good for time. It sounds nice, but no, just come in and do your lines, like most animation is done.
That's true. One of the complaints that some of the fans have about the original Star Trek animated series is that it doesn't really sound like Shatner and Nimoy and Kelly are even in the same room together. They're just obviously delivering their lines. Well, the fact is, no, they weren't. They were, they went into the sound booth, when they had an opportunity. So there really was no chance to play off of somebody else. You just read your lines, not knowing what else was there. So how long in total did it take you to record everybody's lines?
We recorded everybody in 2 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody, the whole so
the whole thing.
But as far as scheduling went,
our stage manager was that good that she could get everybody in, get them prepped, and get them in front of the mic.
But you didn't necessarily have the ability to make sure that you had all the groupings of people together at the same time. It's just okay, it's your turn. You read this for the next hour or two, and then next person comes in for the next hour.
Well, our stage manager actually did that for us. She took over that role of, I guess that would be additional dialogue coach, something like that, and she would read their the response lines for them. But several of the actors were already TV commercials and had done voiceovers, so they knew exactly what to do. That this was not a stage production, and that's just not a luxury that we're going to get.
Were they actually reading off of scripts, or did they, were they asked to memorize their lines going in?
I asked them, and I asked them. Vince made sure they had their script in front of them if they went up on a line, because there's nothing worse than going up and not having something in front of you to correct that. But we built an audio booth that could accommodate 4 actors at one time, and then that's we realized now that's not gonna.
So you built yourself a sound studio. That sounds more impressive than I think you're making it seem. I mean, what?
It's not difficult. We got a lot of hollow core doors, and we assembled those into a matrix, and we got some sound deadening material, and I had some very nice microphones. And the room was large enough. The room was actually very large, so it deadened quite a bit. And
was this a room that you were just renting for a couple of days, or was it, somebody had?
Yeah,
oh,
we rented a large space at one of the local libraries that was a performance hall, and it had good acoustics in it.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. All right. So it's 2 days later. You've got all of your sound in the can. And what is the next step in making your fan film?
Started editing the whole thing together, the audio, and that went fairly quick. See, we recorded in October. By the 1st of December, I had both episodes edited for dialogue, no real sound effects. Then we had to start coming up with our sound effects, and we kind of let that sit and rest until the end of January. So you can go back and kind of get a fresh ear on that. And then started calling music cues.
And for the music, you were using existing Star Trek music.
Yeah, it's all the Star Trek original series library that was put out about 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yep, I've got it myself.
And I'll say, if that was not available, I wouldn't have attempted this. Because there were a couple of CDs out of music cues, but not enough to pull something like this off.
All right, so everything is ready in terms of sound. You could, very well do an audio drama at this point, but no, you wanted to do an animated film. It is now early 2014. You didn't release until 2017, so I'm assuming there's still a bit of story left to tell.
Yeah.
So what happened next? Obviously, you need to find an animator, right? What happened in that?
I started interviewing graphic artists, which was it was substantially more difficult than I thought. I was getting artwork sent to me that was fantastic. A lot of it was too good and too detailed for what we needed. There's no way that we could have animated some of the detail that they had submitted. But I did get about 4 really nice graphic artists. And then I realized I have to get somebody that can get these 4 people all on exactly the same page, graphic style wise. Because you certainly don't want, all these different styles coming in and out, because it'll be too weird. So I hired a guy named Joe Miller as our graphic supervisor, who comes from the advertising world, and he was able to get all of this stuff pulled together in one stream that was cohesive enough.
Now, what were they doing in terms of, obviously they had to create the artwork that you were using, but it then had to be animated. So what was the process for, just like having Spock talk or having Kirk walk across the screen or the shuttle fly across? What was that process like?
Well, I would supply the artist with still frames. We did rotoscoping. Ultimately, that's how we accomplished all the mouth movements.
Okay. Can you explain to folks who don't know what is rotoscoping?
Yeah, rotoscoping is where you take a photograph and you trace it out and you color it, sort of like a coloring book. Anybody that's familiar with Ralph Bakski's movies, Wizards, American Pop, Fritz the Cat, all of his stuff is done rotoscope. He actually films actors moving, and then he takes those frames and he puts them on a Xerox machine and he makes cells out of them. And
so you're not just taking one photo and then taking another photo, taking another photo. You probably have it like on a very quick shutter thing. It's going click, 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 click.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And for me, I just took my Trek Blu-rays and I found, okay, this is a Kirk portrait that I'm going to use, and this is a Kirk profile and then maybe a 3/4 view. And I would look for all the vowel sounds within reason, because you can over animate stuff. You want it just simple enough that you can get away with things. This is not Disney animation. And then I would submit those frames that were all locked in, with one camera angle to an artist and say, here you go. Give me, this shot. And they would mostly do the facial pieces. I tended to do the body pieces because I knew, since I was going to be actually animating, manipulating the artwork across the screen, I knew the software and I knew what I was going to need. The other artists, they were unaware of the software. And so we didn't need that learning curve to be taught.
Now, were the artists giving you the characters in front of just like a green screen or some kind of transparent layer? Or
Yeah,
were
they did all of their artwork in Illustrator, which meant, it's just a face and there was no background. It was just a transparency. And then I would take their artwork and then I would have to adjust it for color. So everybody had the same kind of shadows and shading, because they could go all over the place. You don't want your shadows to be too dense or too light, then you don't have any shadows. Also, is your light coming from over here? Is it over here? Is it here? And so I would take care of all those little details. And all I wanted them to do was concentrate on the faces and give me the best face they could. Don't overdo it. Certainly don't underdo it.
Now, was Vince still involved as director at this point, or had you pretty much taken over?
I had to take over. Vince passed away in May of 2014 suddenly. And nobody knew. It was just, hey, Vince passed away. So I had to step up to the plate and kind of direct the graphics end of all that, which was, I guess, okay, because I was having to do the physical animation, the manipulation of the characters. But at that point, the actors had all been released. They'd been released probably after our first retakes. We had to do a couple of retakes. There's always technical issues.
That has been devastating for you, though.
It was. Everybody. There were several people that knew Vince, that worked with Vince on lots of TV shows. Walker, Texas Ranger, lots of Southland TV commercials, and some stage work. And I had to inform the cast because my best friend, he found out from Vince's wife, and so she didn't know how many people to communicate to on my production, so I had to disperse all that.
I can't imagine having to deliver that news to everybody. I realize, I'm sorry, it's been almost 3/4 of a decade at this point, but it's never easy to lose them. I mean, it sounds like you're still, you still have a bit of sadness, for the loss of your friends. Vince
worked for me for a TV show I did called Theater of Horrors several times. I did dinner theater with him, stage crewing for him. So we have kind of a past.
Well, okay. Let's move on, because I want to tell the story of all this. So, did it take a full 3 years for your artist to draw out everything? Okay, that's
about probably 3 years and 3 months. We would go through fits and starts. I would take the summer off. I would give my graphic artists pretty much the summer off, but I would keep them informed of what we were going to be needing starting in September. And then pretty much September to May, I would be sending out stuff, collecting it, and then manipulating it.
Now, are your artists also working for free? Because that's a lot of work to do gratis.
No, the artists got paid.
Okay.
Yeah, they had to get paid.
No, and I understand that. I mean, even now, when fan films are made, there's a few folks that will do the visual effects for free, but there's also a few folks who will charge you for them. And I know that you're not supposed to pay anybody to work on a fan film, but there's a number of people who do get paid to work on fan films because it's just, to do visual effects, especially the quality that, people like, say,
Yeah.
Samuel Cockings do. You just, there's equipment that you need to use and to, and when you're rendering stuff, as I'm sure you don't have access to your computer while it's rendering, overnight, over the week, and whatever. So, there's definitely costs involved in that. So, I would assume making an animated Star Trek film, unless you had some artists who owe you a big favor, that they're going to want to actually get paid.
Yeah, they're not that good of friends.
And these weren't really even friends of yours before then. You were just
No,
you interviewed for graphic artists.
Yeah, I had put out ad after ad on Craigslist and on DeviantArt.com.
Yeah, DeviantArt.
Yes, and it's safe to Google DeviantArt.
Yeah, I actually have some friends on DeviantArt who are excellent artists.
Yeah, it blows me away the stuff that I saw on there.
Yeah, some amazing people. Now you can find a lot of artists through some of the like Fiverr.com.
Really?
And places like that. Yeah, there's and not all of them are in America. In fact, some of them are very, very cheaply in India. People who are basically undercutting folks like me who offer some of those same services here in America at rates that are above 25 cents an hour. But no, it's out there. Just the internet age, and now it's like, okay, well, he's outsourced to India. Sure, go ahead. But this is before that. This is back in 2014. Okay, so did you reach a point where any of your artists either started flaking on you, or you really had to start cracking the whip behind them, or were they all just pretty much doing a very professional, decent job the whole time?
Yeah, I had some artists that flaked on me. They would.
I'd actually be surprised if you had said none of them had flaked on you.
Oh, really? Yeah, I had some. A lot. Yeah, I'll say it. There were a lot. They would submit some fantastic art, either on time or not, the beginning of not on time, and then they would ghost. They'd vapor. And then ultimately, when I got my core graphic artists that were doing the work, that understood that, yeah, I'm not getting paid a lot of money, but, I said I would do this, and they enjoyed it. They just started cranking the stuff out, and it's like it boiled down to them.
Well, eventually, you managed to get a fan film out there. Now, the big question is, and I don't even know if you were aware that, I guess about half a year before you came out, the Star Trek guidelines, fan film guidelines were released. And when one of the things they said is you can't have a more than 15-minute long fan film, or 2 parts, for half an hour long fan film, and you've got 2 hour long plus fan films. So what did your mind say at that point?
I freaked. I had a serious freak out because at that point I had already gotten into 30 minutes of the first episode. It's 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. And it was clearly about 30 minutes into the first one. And it's like, what the hell am I going to do? And then I kept reading the rules over and over the course of the summer, because I think they came out during the summer.
June 23rd, 2016, yeah. I believe.
You got that tattooed? Yeah.
Well, you have to understand that I write a lot of blogs, and so many times I have to reference the guidelines and such, and sometimes I reference them historically. I talk about in June of 2016 or on June 22nd or June 23rd, 2016. It's hard to actually say if it was the 22nd or the 23rd because they kind of came out overnight. But that was a day that will live in infamy. I mean, ultimately, Star Trek fan films have broken many of the, but they're not really rules. They're guidelines. So and a lot of fans, we remind filmmakers of this, is that it's not that if you break this rule, then the timer will start going down to zero until an explosive lawsuit lands on your desk. It's simply that if you follow these guidelines, you're safe.
Okay.
If you don't follow these guidelines, it doesn't mean that you're going to get sued. There's a fellow named Vance Major who's released over 150 different Star Trek fan films that he shot on a cell phone. His Constar Menard fan films are very low budget, low quality. I like to say he produces them with the money that he finds in the cushions of his couch. And this is not the kind of fan. That's not the droids that CBS is looking for. They're looking for the $1 million fan films that look like they could be professionally produced. So in that way, I think that there's a misunderstanding about the guidelines, that they're somehow rules that is verboten to violate. Like you can violate them, it's just you are taking a chance if you do. But anyway, you're back in June of 2016. You were having your freak out, and what was the epiphany that made you think, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and release it and see what happens?
Well, I read through it, and in nowhere does it say animation.
Oh, there you go.
And I thought, okay, I can inhale. Just go ahead and do it, and let it land where it lands. Because I'm clearly not making any money. I'm not raising any money off of it. Quite the opposite.
Yeah, losing money.
Because this came all out of my pocket.
How did your husband feel about that, by the way, that his birthday present became this really, really expensive thing that you did for 4 years?
No, he was okay with it.
Oh.
There were many hard drives that were bought, and more than a few graphic cards that kept burning up. So.
Now, by the way, I'm assuming that your husband's also a Star Trek fan. You wouldn't have written a Star Trek novel for him. It's not?
No. It's inconsequential to him completely.
All right. Hold on. I realize I should have asked this question, 45 minutes ago, but seriously, so you decided this was going to be a great gift to give the love of my life. I'm going to write him a Star Trek novel that he doesn't care about Star Trek, but I'm going to write him a novel.
Yeah.
How did?
Can we edit that out?
Possibly.
No, that's okay.
But
there's a lot of twisted irony in there.
Okay. Well, now, one of the things, obviously, anybody who watches it will know that you obviously had Hawaii on your mind. Anybody who's actually been to Hawaii or taken a vacation in the South Pacific is like, oh man, I want to go back. So, perhaps this was a way of telling your husband that, this is the vacation I want to go on with you. But
well, no, we had already gone a couple of times, and we both have an immense love of Hawaii. So that was the impetus for this whole thing.
Okay, yeah, because if it's more like we love going to Hawaii, I had a wonderful vacation with you. Here's a Star Trek novel about
that. Was not. It's not a backdoor suggestion. No.
Okay.
Hey, let's go to Hawaii.
Here's
no. We'd already been there. By the time I started the graphics part of the production, we had already taken a trip just to get photographs. So all those pictures are real places in the islands.
Oh, some of them look familiar to me, actually. Which islands did you take the pictures from?
All of them.
All of them.
all except Molokai, I believe. Molokai may have gotten in there. No, it didn't. No, we hadn't gone at that point.
All right, because there was one that looked a little bit like Turtle Bay on Oahu.
It very well could be. I brought lots of SD cards and just started taking lots of reference material.
That's Hawaii. Hawaii was created basically to just use up memory cards for photos.
Yes.
Actually, it's a kind of funny a story. My wife and I went there. We'd been married a few years, and it was actually Turtle Bay. We were on Oahu, and there was my wife likes to tell this story. I think we had been married less than a year at that point. Anyway, she said, so there I was at this gorgeous resort in Turtle Bay, and I'm there at the pool, and there's just this gorgeous sunset. It's slowly developing as the sun is going down to the horizon. I'm looking out over the Pacific Ocean, and it's just getting more and more beautiful. And I'm watching it, and I'm looking to my left, and there's, couples holding hands, and I'm looking to my right, and, there's more couples, and they're hugging and they're cuddling, and I'm watching this amazing sunset. And just as the sunset was ending, I decided that I need to find Jonathan. I was out off on the beach on a bunch of rocks. I had found this fantastic spot. I had set up my tripod, and I was taking a photo, taking the number of photos, and it's just I needed to be there at the magic hour when the sunset's going down. And so Wendy finally finds her husband, and she says, "Okay, Jonathan, are you done now?" And I said, "Well, just another couple minutes. I'm waiting for the after light." Because the thing about a sunset is after it goes underneath, there's still some sunset that can happen. And so
did you get the green flash?
No, interestingly enough, I got a green flash. The only place I ever got a green flash is coming back from Antarctica, but that's another story entirely. But no, I wasn't really looking for the green flash, but I was looking for this kind of rainbow effect that I knew was going to happen. But I got this amazing shot that, as much as Wendy would tell the story with a certain amount of tongue-in-cheek frustration in the fact that this gorgeous sunset, she could have been holding my hand, or instead I'm just out on some rocks in the middle of nowhere, my water splashing over my feet as my trying to keep my tripod from getting wet. And this photo was ultimately one of the favorite photos that I've ever taken as far as Wendy's concerned. So she tells the story with a bit of irony there, but anyway, yeah. So I do love Hawaii. So that element of your fandom, I mean, it's gorgeous to look at. I mean, the cinematography is, as you can say, if that's an animational term as well. But I didn't realize that I didn't realize that you'd actually taken pictures on Hawaii, on the islands of Hawaii, and had your artist draw those specifically. But they did a fantastic job too. So. But it just, in that way, it feels very much like, a Star Trek episode if they had the budget to go to Hawaii, as opposed to just, driving out to Bronson Caves or Vasquez Rocks. Like, do you ever notice how many planets out there look like Southern California?
It's amazing.
So anyway, so you came out with this in 2017, and what was the reaction from fans that you've gotten?
It was very slow. And I honestly didn't expect much from it. There's a lot of stuff on the internet, and how are people going to find your stuff? And I just wanted to be able to do it and say, oh, look, I did an animation. I've done animation before, but nothing, not 2 hours long. And it sat around for about 2 months, just kind of, just a couple of clicks. And my social media coordinator, Natalia Corres, she was working to get the word out. And about Thanksgiving time, it blew up. and friends were calling and saying, have you looked at your count on YouTube? I said, no. I'm done with that, and I'm kind of walking away. And they said, no, you better get on there and look. And so it was like, holy cow, that I would never say it went viral, but the last time I looked, it was like 750,000 views collectively.
It's impressive.
That, that's beyond my comprehension. So I'm glad people have enjoyed it. So.
Well, I certainly did. So, the last question I always ask folks, do you think there's another fan film in your future? Do you want to do this again?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, we're trying to finish it right now.
Oh, okay. See, I thought you were going to say, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to do this again. It was too much for me or whatever. So you've got another one coming. Oh, that's a scoop.
Yeah. We had actually were writing it at the time we were doing the audio recording, and it's only an hour. It's not 2 hours of your life. You don't have to trudge through that. Yeah,
I did watch it all, by the way. It took me a few
thank you.
viewings to get through everything.
Of course, I get negative and positive comments, but the negative comments have tended to be, this is far more adult than I want my kids to see. They were thinking that it was a Saturday morning filmations, and so the fact that you sat through the second part, you have to admit there's some things that would not have gone on in an animated movie or TV show in the 60s.
Can you tell us anything about your new half-hour long animated episode?
It'll be a full hour.
It'll be full. Sorry,
and it is not the good-natured shore leave that we saw in the Paradise Makers. This is substantially darker. I'd like to think it's a story that Roddenberry would tell today. And by today, I mean 2020, 2021, 2022. Surprising to me because it was written in 2014.
So does this film have a name yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Nope.
Do you have any idea when it's going to be out?
By the first of the summer, hopefully sooner than that.
Oh, okay. Well, you're going to let me know.
Yes,
so I can interview again.
You'll be probably the second to know after me.
Okay. Perfect. Well, Gaston, I really thank you for your time today.
Well,
a fantastic job on a fantastic fan film, and I can't wait to see the next one.
Okay, thanks. I've enjoyed this.
Me too.